We hope you all enjoyed that wonderful lunch prepared for us by the food service from Viterbo University. Our food service at Viterbo is extraordinary in the commitment that people make to our students and to our community of providing safe, healthy food. So please, let's make sure we take time to thank all those people who feed us each and every day. And we have a number of people here from Organic Valley. Let's all make sure that we take time to thank our farmers. I'm constantly worried about the weather, and people say, "Are you a farmer?" I said, "No, I'm an eater." And it's amazing in terms of our farmers. We not only feed our country because of what's happening in Ukraine, our farmers this year, we feed the world. And so all of our lives are predicated on their service. For those of you from farm background, just raise your hand. How many people grew up on a farm? Please tell your family members you're heroic for what you do on behalf of all of us. To begin this afternoon, a contemplative moment, let's welcome back Matthew Waters. It's incredible. The world has stopped to listen to violin music played in the shelters in Ukraine, where people gather in fear of their lives, and musicians are coming to play music that provides hope and peace. Thank you, Matthew. We have another group of committed young people with us here today. The Wisconsin Air Patrol is in the balcony. Ladies and gentlemen, please stand so we can recognize you. We need to remind you that you are not future servant leaders, you are servant leaders now. We're so happy you were able to join us. We at one point had a cohort out at the Toma VA in servant leadership. We tried to expand our program and bring it to where we could, and people at the VA were able to provide some scholarships, and people joined us. And two of the people from that cohort are here today with us. The first married couple to graduate with their MASL together. They said they not only learned a great deal about servant leadership, but even more about each other and their marriage. Mark and Sherry Shack. And in that same cohort was our next speaker. Staff Sergeant Jervie Windom was at Fort McCoy. And I can remember still coming in, he came in with his fatigues, and he had his hat. And he first addressed me as sir. I said, no, that's my dad. Yes, sir. Okay. And we had to introduce ourselves about your own servant leadership journey. Where did it begin? And Jervie began with this story, that he grew up in Harlem. And on Sundays, his mom and his grandma would take him to church. And after church, they'd come home and they'd have Sunday dinner. And then his grandma would wrap up the leftovers, his grandma Edith, put them in a bag and say to Jervie, now please bring them down to the gentleman at the end of the street. These were gentlemen who were kind of traveling in terms of hard times. These are people that oftentimes other people would avoid, but not Edith. Those are her brothers, and she knew they needed to be fed. And so young Jervie would go down obediently, bringing them Sunday dinner. Well, then Jervie admitted that he got to middle school and he started to get interested in girls. And he thought to himself, what happens if one of the girls in my class sees me going down and bringing dinner to these guys? A little bit embarrassed by that, as we all are in middle school. And then he was going to his first dance and got all dressed up and had his money and going to pick up his date, going to his first dance, and he gets out in the street and there's a group of thugs and they surround him. And Jervie said at that moment, I closed my eyes and prayed, just knowing that I was going to get a beating and they're going to take my money and ruin my night. And his eyes are closed, and all of a sudden he hears, hey, leave that boy alone. That's Edith's boy. You leave him alone. And here this army of guys that he's been bringing Sunday dinner to come with their wine bottles and their brown paper bags and just walk up and say, son, we're looking out after you. We'll always take care of you. You're Edith's boy. And Jervie said at that moment, I understood that my grandmother was teaching me about service. Extraordinary. Goes into the United States military, has served overseas, came back to Fort McCoy where he's a staff sergeant. And then he and his wife Nelda, who's here with us, this is their anniversary week, and they got married up in the park in Winona. I went to visit yesterday. And then he gets deployed to Hawaii. He said, I really loved Toma. Hawaii wasn't bad. But he had his son, Carmen, didn't want to move with the family. He was finishing up in terms of high school. And then Jervie encouraged him, got him enrolled at Viterbo. Because of his experience with us, he wanted to have his son go to some place that was familiar. And his son, Carmen, came to Viterbo. He was only able to stay with us for a semester and then moved back to join other family members in Philadelphia. Enrolled in Temple University. And Jervie told me last night that he got a call from his son. Fourth-year residency as a surgeon in Philadelphia, working in an emergency room. And because of the recent violence, you can imagine what that young man has seen, and he calls his dad for support and love and prayer. Isn't it amazing how all of our lives are connected when we choose to do what our grandmas told us to do? When we continue to be faithful to who we always were. We are so fortunate to welcome back to us Staff Sergeant Pastor Jervie Windom.
It is always good to be here. I guess I can use this one. It's always good to be here. It's a blessing to be here with you. Every time I think of Viterbo, I think of Viterbo with fond memories. And it's just a blessing to see such wonderful friends and family being here. So God bless you. What I'm going to ask that we would do right now is I'd love for everyone to take out their phones. Does everyone have their phone? We said this rarely happens. People always tell you to put away your phones. But I'm going to ask if you would take your phone out, and I would love for you to look through your phone for a brief moment and look for someone that represents a relationship that you would like to see restored. And if you don't have that picture in your phone, I'd love for you to go to your text message area and text yourself a name of a person, a relationship that you would love to see restored. The reason that this is such an important exercise is because I always say we do this for real. This is real life. So we're not here just for the exchange of information. How many of us are here to truly receive something transformational? We truly want to see something happen with our time here. I believe this is that kind of conference, and I believe it's that kind of space. Viterbo has been that for me. I could stand here all day and talk about situation after situation where I've experienced God's grace because of the information that was given to me and the lessons that I learned from applying that information, or the lessons that I learned from not applying that information. But nonetheless, we truly want to see our lives transformed. We want to become better, and we do want to see relationships restored. But in order for that to happen, I believe we have to change the way that we see one another. This idea of one heart at a time is so important. Do we realize that whenever we're in the presence of another person, that we're in the presence of someone that God loves unconditionally? Do we realize the miracle of just being in the presence of another person? The power of that moment and what that truly means to God and what He desires that means to us. When we overlook that, then we find ourselves lacking. Because the truth is we're not going to be willing to sacrifice to restore what doesn't matter to us. So we can say that we want to have this conversation about restoring relationships, but there is a cost. And if people don't matter, then we're not going to be willing to make the sacrifices necessary to see those relationships restored. So I'll tell you a story. It's a painful story of my life, in my life, but I think it's something that I think about almost every day. When I was about 15 years old, I remember standing on a bridge wanting to end my life. I don't know if you know this or not, how many of you have been keeping up with this epidemic of mental illness that we have going on in our country. But it's very real to us in Texas, and I believe it's probably very real to you here. If you've been watching the news, church shootings, school shootings, and in my town, where our church is located in Lamarck, Texas, it's considered per capita one of the most dangerous towns in the United States. I every week go to the detention center there where our juveniles are detained, and I sit and I listen to young man and young woman after young man and young woman saying, I don't matter, no one cares about me, nobody listens to me. And I really connect with them because I know what that feels like. Now, understand what I'm saying. When I say I know what that feels like, that doesn't mean that that was a reality in my life. It means that that was a reality to me. Just as Tom just shared, my grandmother loved me. My mom loved me. But I was going through something very difficult in my life, and many of the young people around us right now, not just young people, but parents and others, people are going through difficult times right now. And they need to know that they matter. And you and I have an opportunity whenever we're in the presence of another person, in the presence of another human heart, to help them know that they matter. So when I was on that bridge, I didn't believe I mattered. And I jumped. And I still remember how long those moments seemed as I began to just kind of go down. And the most amazing part of this story is that I did not see that there was a tree under the water. I couldn't see it. If I had seen it, of course, I would have moved and I wouldn't have jumped in that area, because I can assure you when I hit that tree, I was in pain. But that tree saved my life. Now, here's what I think about often concerning that tree. The reason I think about this all the time is because, just think, when that tree was in the forest, probably some time ago, I don't know how old that tree was, but it was standing tall with the other trees, and it was serving the purpose that we think trees serve. You know, to stand tall, provide, some sort of, space for animals and critters to crawl and live and, provide shade, all the things that trees, and however trees fit into the ecosystem, right? Some of you are very smart about that. But this tree fell sometime in the forest, and I don't know how, and I don't know when. But I can imagine in my mind that when this tree fell, in my mind, it's like I could see the hand of God just moving this tree just a little bit to the left, just a little bit to the right, just all perfect, and ensuring that that tree falls exactly where it's supposed to be. Because one day, there's going to be a 15-year-old young man who's lost, who's hurting, who's suffering for whatever reason, and he's going to need something to fall on. If these trees had personalities, I'm certain that maybe the other trees may look at this tree and say, you're a failure. Look at you. First storm comes, or first big storm comes, look at you. You just fall down. Just fall down in the river. People have forgotten about you. And this tree was forgotten about by everyone, I believe, except God. And that's where I'd like to start our conversation today. How many of us are willing to to just serve where God puts us. Even if that means that you don't get to grow up and be the tree that you want to be, or the tree that everybody expects you to be. That even if it means that you're that fallen tree, then guess what? You lay there and you just serve God's purpose. Because if God put you there, you're there for a reason. So here we are. That's our team. Resonate Church, that's the pastors and our families. And we're a pretty diverse team. Oh, thank you. We're a very diverse team, and we absolutely love one another. And every heart matters to us. We say it all the time to one another, and we remind one another of how much we love one another and how much we love our community. We basically are every end of the spectrum. There's some very red people in there, and there's some very blue people in there. I mean, it's Texas. What do you expect, right? But you know what? None of that matters as much as loving God and loving our community. That's the most important thing. And so we say that every single heart matters because relationships matter. And as I said earlier, don't enter into the conversation of restoration if people don't matter to you, because you're not going to be willing to sacrifice for something that doesn't matter. So in our community, before meeting these amazing people and having this team, it was just that person in the blue shirt that I'm holding hands with. It was just Nilda and I. We went to Texas and we launched Resonate Church, and then Josh and Maya, the two at the end with the beautiful baby, came and joined us. So it was the four of us. And I don't know, there may be pastors in this room, but I don't know many pastors that can say that they preached a Sunday, and at the end of the sermon, someone sitting in the congregation comes up and starts critiquing the sermon and using the N-word for 20 minutes. Can you imagine what that feels like? That was a welcome to Texas. That happened, and we were standing there in the congregation. Matter of fact, Nilda walked up to me, and she heard it and turned around and walked off. So I don't know what she's from New Jersey, so maybe she needed some time to process, right? But you know, that was one of the best things to happen to me, because that was a challenge. Does this person matter? Did Jesus shed his blood for this person? Does this person matter to God? And if this person truly matters to God, so much to God, do they matter to you? I had to wrestle with that. And I believe that we all have relationships that we need to wrestle with. And what we realized is that God had put us here for that reason. And so this same gentleman, maybe 2 years later, he comes to the church and we're working together on a community event, right? That happened. That's the grace of God. How does that happen? How are we able to overcome, our differences? How are we able, some would say, well, sometimes you have to talk it out. Actually, it all begins with, does that person matter? What value do you place on that person's life, and do they matter to you? How much do they matter to you? Because that's the beginning of everything. We hear things differently if we love people. Instead of hearing, you're hurting me, when you love them, you hear that they're hurting. It all sounds different when we're listening differently and we're seeing people as God sees them. Rick Warren, who wrote The Purpose-Driven Life, this is a statement that I read early on when we were in the process of launching Resonate, that people are not looking for another friendly church, they're looking for friends. So we stopped trying to be a friendly church, And we really endeavored to be friends to our community. And in doing that, our strategic plan, and I don't want to get so much into that, but our strategic plan, we went into church planning boot camps, all the things that you would go through, that an organization would put you through to ensure that you're successful. But what we found is that there is no greater success in exegeting your community than literally just caring about people and being willing to listen to their stories. Because that's how you show that you care. They matter. Their stories matter. Their celebrations matter. Their pain matters. Everything concerning them matters. It matters to God. And so it matters to us. And so in becoming friends with our community, what we found is that people needed friends. People are tired of us being close to them for our reasons. I'm going to sit and listen to you because I want to see you on Sunday. I'm going to call you because I need to see you at this meeting. The reason I'm reaching out to you is because I need you to do X or B here. When people realize that you're willing to reach out to them regardless, at our church we have almost 22 different missional communities. So our church is very small. People come on Sundays if they want. We have a 2 p.m. service, so you can sleep in, eat lunch, and then come, right? I know some of you like that. But we meet people where they are. If you don't come to Resonate, people in our community already know that Resonate's going to come to you. That's just what we do. And so we have realtors that can't go to church on Sundays because they work on Sundays. We meet at their real estate office and we do Monday church with them. So we have church 7 days a week. We do that. Why? Wherever people are already gathered, why can't we go there, be incarnational, and just love them and be present? And it doesn't matter. We're not trying to get you to come anywhere. You know why? Because you matter to God. You matter enough for us to meet you right where you are. Even if that means on the street corner, even if that means under the gazebo, wherever, that's what we do. And the reason, I would love for us to read this together, all together. Teacher, which commandment in the law is the greatest? He said to him, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind. This is the greatest and first commandment. And the second is like it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. On these 2 commandments hang all the law and the prophets. So, loving God and loving people. If we're truly going to enter into this conversation of restoring relationships, I think it's important for us to note that relationships then have to matter more than behavior. As parents, oftentimes we make this mistake. I know I did when I was a parent. If you have 2 kids and you have one kid that's a joy to be around, right? They remind you so much of yourself. When they come in the house, they're skipping, right? They're always saying grace at dinner. They always clean up after themselves, right? And then you have another kid, oh my goodness, like they walk in the house and the lights flicker and you hear the Darth Vader music. The truth is that both of those kids need the same thing from you. Oftentimes, good behavior can distract you from what a kid really needs. Remember, I just told you the story about me on the bridge? I never had any discipline problems. My grades were always good. We got to always focus on being over doing. The well-being of the child is much more important than the behavior of the child. Because if you have a great relationship with your kids, that relationship will outlast their behavior. My son Carmen's in medical school right now, and I heard Darth Vader music. right? I'm just saying, they're challenges. But you and I, we can allow those challenges to distract us, and then we're feeding into that instead of really checking on the child. Just because a child is acting good, that doesn't mean that they're okay. Aren't we finding this out? Isn't that how mental illness works? Oftentimes it hides itself, and we're distracted by the behavior, saying, oh, well, he's fine or she's fine. They're always doing well. Well, are they? Well, it's the same with our friends, and it's the same with our family. Just because you see them on Facebook and they're smiling and looking like they're having a great time, maybe you need to call them. Maybe you need to check on them. Because relationships matter more than behavior. Restored relationships will always outlast the behavior, the things that we like and don't like, the things that we don't like. We will outlast that if we truly care about the people that God has placed in our presence. It's a gift to know the people that you know. Everyone doesn't know the people that you know. What a blessing, what a historic blessing for you to be in the lives of the people that are your friends and those that are your enemies. What does the Bible say that we should do for our enemies? He doesn't change. He doesn't say just love your neighbors means love the ones that you love. Love the ones that you like, or love the ones that love you. Even love those that despitefully misuse you. You love them too. Why? Because to God, they're the same. He loves both of them equally. So the person in your office that you absolutely can't stand, Jesus is like, that's my baby. And the person in your office that you go to lunch with every single day, that's really the one that you fist bump when you come in every Monday morning, Jesus is saying, that's my baby. Because he loves them both. The challenge is, can we? Can we see them through his eyes? Can we love them well? So don't let behavior be a distraction. I'm just going to go through a few pictures here, and then I'll be out of your way. This took place in Freer, Texas. This is Mr. Romero. Mr. Romero actually, outside of his home, he built a prayer chapel. It's a mini church, and it's amazing. When I say it's a mini church, it's everything that a full-size church is, and it's only like maybe this tall or whatever. Like only one person can get in it, right? But he built this prayer chapel. And so we heard about it, and we ended up driving 5 hours. We have a friend, Tutho, there, good friend of mine, that actually lives in that town. And we went up there because no one has seen this place. No one has blessed this place. And so we went there to meet this gentleman and to bless what God had placed in his heart. The Lord just placed in his heart to build this thing in his front yard for the community, a prayer chapel. And so when we did that, we just became friends. And so what I was talking about earlier, about being willing to be that tree, that fallen tree, if that's what it takes, right? Because that's what it's about. It's about knowing what people need. Not giving them what you want to give them, but truly giving them what they need. And you only are going to know what they need through relationship. There's no shortcut to that. You're going to have to care about them. You're going to have to love them, and you're going to have to listen to them in order to truly understand what it is that they need. And I know that's hard, but you're only going to be willing to pay that price and sacrifice that, yourself, sometimes your pride, if they matter. If they matter. And so for this young man, basically, he needed to know that he mattered. He needed to know that someone sees him and that this little prayer chapel matters. And you know what? There are people that gather at that prayer chapel. There are kids that pray there every week. This little thing that God placed in his heart. This is, and I don't have a lot of time. I wish I had time to tell you about our missional communities. As I said, we have 22 of them now. But this is Lewis in the middle. Lewis is a barber. So what we do is we have 2 barber colleges that are missional communities. We believe that barbers can be missionaries behind chairs because people have to come and sit down for an hour in a barber chair, right? And so what we're doing is we're resourcing barbers and telling them that they can be a catalyst of hope in the community. And so we go to the barber college every week and we just pour into these barbers. And eventually, when they graduate, they come to our church. We pray over them and release them as missionaries in the city. That's what we do, right? Because your vocation, live sent in your vocation. That's what it is. Wherever God's called you, right? Even if it means you got to be the fallen tree, then you just be the fallen. Whatever the Lord wants you to do, there's a reason why he placed you there. So this brother Lewis is basically mentoring a dozen or so kids, and he just basically needed to tell somebody about his dream of having a drum line for Galveston County. So he already has 12 kids. He's been teaching them how to drum, and so now I just sat and just really listened to him. And it was the biggest thing, the fact that a pastor would come and just sit down and listen to his dream. And he is so excited. And so not only that, I brought a team back to sit and listen to see how we can shape this thing that's in his heart. And he was so excited. He couldn't stop hugging me. And he's huge. And but it was fine. It was fine. He just swallowed me up. But he's such a gentle giant, and I love this guy. This guy does so much for the community. And so what did he need? What did he need from me? Just to listen, just to come by and listen, just to know that he's not crazy and that his dreams matter, and maybe take some time to connect him with the right people. This is a community that we go to, and one of our missional communities. Basically, we go there. We were setting up, pre-COVID, we were there like 3-4 times a week, just constantly doing things for the kids. But if you know this, the youngest at the end there, that's actually my grandson. And there are 2 of my grandsons in there. And so what do they need? They need to help me. They need to help their GP. That's important to them. I used to just kind of try to get things done, because it's faster if I just grab that table and put it up myself. But what did my grandbabies need? GP, can I help you? Some of us are moving entirely too fast. Slow down. Slow down and take a few moments and let them help you. They need that. They need that. They talk about, when they come over my house, I'm telling you, it's the most amazing thing, the way that my grandkids love me. I love them so much, but I can never give them what they give me. They just really love me. And it just blesses my socks off. So now that I do my best to pay attention to what they need, guess what they do? They do their best to pay attention to what I need. Sometimes they'll just come and hug me and just rub my head. And you guys, you don't know, I don't have the time to tell you about some of my health problems, some of the things that Nilda and I suffer with as veterans. It is so beautiful that our kids and our grandkids come and they pour into us. These babies have given me back 100 times what I've given them just in this one moment. Please slow down. What do your grandkids need? What do your kids need? Sometimes they just need you to let them help you. In this same community, there was a triple homicide that happened. 3 young babies that we used to come to a lot of our events. We had an ice cream social for them. And these 3 babies were murdered by their mom's boyfriend. And no one would go to this community because it's a dangerous community. And I've asked people to come with us. I think I had, out of all the people that we asked, there were like just maybe one other person that came out. But we were there all throughout the week with them. And what did they need? These kids just needed to feel safe. They just needed to feel safe, just to gather them in a circle and just pray and just say that, you're okay and God is with you and the angels are here. They just needed to feel safe. How many people around us just need to feel safe? Just need to know that it's okay. This is Mr. Kelly, another one of our missional communities. Mr. Kelly's a Cowboys fan, but I don't hold it against him. But Mr. Kelly, he always tells these funny stories and jokes. And he just needs to know that he's still funny. Nobody visits Mr. Kelly. He's been in this facility for years and years. Nobody visits him. But we visit him, and we love him, and we'll have coffee with him. And I'll sit and listen to his jokes, and other members of our church will come and sit and listen to his jokes. And at this facility, we had several people that had motorized wheelchairs like Mr. Kelly, and they used to drive those wheelchairs to our church. And I remember having to stop them because one day they were saying, one of them was talking about the people that had wheelchairs that weren't motorized. They wanted to tie ropes to those wheelchairs and see if they can pull them down the highway. I didn't think that was good. But here's what I'm saying. We can all be catalysts of hope if we simply realize that every single heart matters. And if every single heart matters, are you and I willing to sacrifice and just do whatever it takes? Whatever God wants us to do and wherever he's placed us, even if that means that God has chosen you to be the fallen tree. You may feel like that's not such a good place to be because you look around you and you see the beautiful trees and you see, so much around you that just looks amazing and you just have to lay at the bottom of a river. But I can tell you this, as one person that's here today because of a fallen tree, it's worth it. It's worth it, and God has placed you where he wants you. See the hope in that. See the hope in that, and you can't look with your natural eyes. You have to look with your heart as you see the value in every single person that God has put around you. I'd love for us to read this together. Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is doubt, faith. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is darkness, light. Where there is sadness, joy. As you look down at your phones and see the picture of that person that you pulled up, or if you look in your text messages and you see the name of that person that you text, my prayer for you is that you would not be distracted, that you'll walk in God's grace, and that you'll care enough to be whatever you need to be for that person. Whatever it is. I didn't say what that person wants you to be, but what God called you to be in that situation, even if it means that you have to lay down, swallow your pride, and be the fallen tree. Amen. At this time, I'm going to ask that Krista Williams come out. Thank you.
First of all, I think Jervie deserves a wonderful round of applause. So no, I am not on your agenda for today. So I thank Jervie for conspiring with me today in an act of goodness, along with a few others, to present a very special award to a very special person. Robert Greenleaf wrote that spirit is the animating force that disposes one to be a servant to others. In 2018, an award was created in the name of Anne McGee Cooper to honor servant leaders who exemplify an extraordinary commitment to living, serving, and bringing the spirit of servant leadership to life in order to leave the world with its highest possibility. Ann McGee Cooper was mentored by Robert Greenleaf and spent 50 years being a spirit carrier, nurturing and working tirelessly to bring the spirit of servant leadership to many well-known organizations as well as her community of Dallas. Greenleaf said, this is his quote, "In my view of the world, there are people whom I would call spirit carriers. Servants who nurture the human spirit are spirit carriers. They serve to connect those who do the work of the world or who are being prepared for that role, with vision from both the past and contemporary prophets. Those servants find the resources and make the intensive effort to be an effective influence. They just don't make speeches or write books as the prophet does. They are spirit carriers. They connect the prophecy with the people so that it changes their lives. The Spirit is power, but only when the Spirit carrier, the servant as nurturer of the human spirit, is a powerful and not a casual force." It was an honor to be asked by the founders of this award to present it today to somebody. The founders were Dwayne Trammell, who was the business partner of Ann McGee Cooper for most of her career, along with Isabel Lopez, who was a servant leadership scholar, and the founder, retired now founder of the Sophia organization, to create this award in Ann's memory. In 2018, the award was given to Don Frick. Don, also a servant leadership scholar and author, was given this award at the International Servant Leadership Conference in Dallas, Texas. So now it's my privilege to present this award to someone who meets the very definition of spirit carrier, as Robert Greenleaf defined it. Someone who connects the prophecy with the people so that it changes their lives. Someone who is the nurturer of the human spirit. Someone who is a powerful force for good in the world. Honestly, when I read the definition of spirit carrier, nobody else but Tom Thibodeau comes to my mind. You're being summoned. Tom certainly has a list of accomplishments and contributions that he's made to Viterbo University, to the greater La Crosse area and beyond. And those are his actions, but this really is about his being. This is about him embodying, a word that Mariah used earlier, embodying the spirit of servant leadership. And no one is a better spirit carrier than Tom. So please join me in celebrating Tom Thibodeau as the recipient of the 2022 Ann McGee Cooper Spirit of Servant Leadership Award.
Thank you. As you know, none of us earns awards. These are gifts given by the people who have loved us for a lifetime. So I thank all those people who have loved me for a lifetime and made today possible, but made my life possible. And you have those people in your lives as well. You just look at them on your phones. So, very grateful. And one of those few times in my life I don't have a lot of words. But I'd like to particularly thank my wife. The Jewish Talmud teaches that Moses, the people were asked, why is he not spending more time in his own tent with his wife Zipporah? And the rabbis wondered, why did they put that into the writings? And they pondered it, And then they came to this realization, and we all must be aware of this in servant leadership. The family of the leader are the ones who suffer most. When we find ourselves serving in Iraq, Afghanistan, center city of Houston, find yourself serving the VA, Sophia, schools, our families make sacrifices that make our lives possible. So none of this is possible without the people who sacrifice on our behalf. And I would like to say that this award belongs to Priscilla Thibodeau. I don't know about you, but when I hear a good preacher preaching, I just want one more story, and here it is. Please, Jervie, tell them about the barber colleges in Houston.
Okay. Well, so basically, the barber colleges that we have currently are two, Gulf Coast Barber College and Third Coast Barber College. And how it all came about is that we had, whenever new businesses come to our community, we do our very best to welcome them. So you don't escape. If you come to our community, we're going to hunt you down. We're going to let you know that you're in our community. And I did something that I've never done before. I actually wrote an article for the paper, which is not something that I do, right? I never do that. But I wrote an article welcoming this group, this couple who started Barber College. And so from that, we had a friendship. And so as I started going there, I started realizing that, it was just great to be around these students. And many of them was just, they were really plugged into the community. And as I'm sitting there and just kind of sharing and talking with them, I realized that there was relational capital there. Like they knew the community, like they really knew the soil of the community. And so what would it be like if they could see their vocation differently? Like through the lens of what happens if every heart matters to the barber, right? Every person that comes in and sits in your chair, you realize that this is a person that God loves so dearly and so unconditionally. What happens if the barber catches that? And so we started having conversations with them, and they loved it. And they were like, tell me more. Well, that ended up being a hour class per week, which then ended up being more than that, right? And then we ended up setting up a mentor program for them, and then an alumni program after they graduate from Barber College. And now they're dispersed to their particular shops throughout the city. And so now we have an alumni program where we continue to pour into them, and we want them to become just resources for the community. If somebody comes in and they're depressed or they're down, that barber has numbers in their phone that they can give that person. They know who to call. They know who to, so they are like a hub. So if you go to any of our communities and you need help, you can run to the barbershop. If you can't make the church might be closed, but barbershop might be open, And so that's something that we take very seriously. So we want to see that actually spread throughout other vocations and spaces in our community. Yeah.